There is a $2 powder sitting on the shelf of every pharmacy in America right now that removes all lead fouling from any rifle barrel in exactly 10 minutes. Your grandfather knew about it. The United States military built their arsenals around it, and the multi-billion-dollar gun care industry has been praying for decades that you never find out it exists. Now picture this. It is a crisp, freezing November morning. The frost is heavy on the oak leaves, and the woods are dead silent. You've been sitting in your stand for 4 hours. Your toes are numb. Your coffee went cold 2 hours ago. And then, like a ghost stepping out of the mist, he appears. The heavy-horned, mature, white-tail buck you've been tracking on your trail cams all season. He steps into a clearing exactly 150 yards away. The wind is in your face. The animal is perfectly broadside, completely unaware of your presence. You slowly raise your rifle. You settle the crosshairs right behind his front shoulder. You control your breathing. You apply steady pressure to the trigger. The rifle roars, shattering the morning silence. But as the smoke clears, the buck does not drop. He doesn't even stumble. He flags his white tail and vanishes into the thick timber, leaving you sitting there in absolute shock. You climb down, heart pounding in your throat, and you search for blood. Nothing. You check the impact site. Nothing. It was a clean miss. How is that even possible? You blame the freezing wind. You blame your scope rings. You blame your breathing. You might even blame the ammunition. But what if I told you that the real reason your bullet strayed off target was hiding deep inside the dark steel of your barrel? And what if I told you that the expensive $20 bottle of fancy gun solvent sitting on your workbench right now is not fixing the problem? In fact, it is actively making it worse. I need to be honest with you.
What the industry buried decades ago is the simplest truth in firearms maintenance. They took a $2 pharmacy product, repackaged it behind flashy tactical labels, watered it down with cheap fillers, and marked it up over 900%. And every single time you walk down that gun care aisle and reach for one of those brightly colored bottles, you are funding the exact machine that is designed to keep you ignorant, dependent, and coming back for more. Welcome back to HuntForge. Today, I'm going to reveal a closely guarded military secret from the arsenals of the early 20th century. I'm going to show you how a simple $2 pharmacy product removes all lead and carbon fouling from your barrel in exactly 10 minutes. Gun makers and chemical companies prayed you would never find this out, because once you understand the truth, you will never buy their overpriced, watered-down solvents ever again. Buckle up, brother. We are about to forge the truth. To understand the lie, you first have to understand the animal we are hunting, and the terrifying physics of the weapon you hold in your hands. A mature white-tailed deer is a marvel of evolutionary biology. Their reaction times are measured in fractions of a second. Their vitals, when factoring in distance, wind, and adrenaline, require surgical sub-minute of angle precision to hit ethically. You owe it to that animal to deliver a perfect, humane shot. But inside your rifle barrel, a silent killer is destroying your precision, shot after shot. We call it lead and metallic fouling. And here is the part that should make your blood boil. The companies selling you cleaning products know exactly how it works, and they are deliberately selling you formulas that manage the symptom without ever curing the disease. Because a cured customer is a lost customer. The science is actually simple, and it is the reason they do not want you to understand it. When the firing pin strikes the primer, it ignites the powder charge, creating a catastrophic explosion that generates upwards of 50,000 pounds per square inch of pressure.
As your bullet is violently forced down the bore, it accelerates to speeds exceeding 2,500 feet per second. The sheer mechanical friction between the bullet's jacket, or lead alloy, and the steel rifling generates extreme thermal energy. The temperature spike is so severe that the surface of the bullet actually exceeds its melting point in microscopic layers. This phenomenon is known in the ballistics world as gas cutting or smearing. As the bullet exits the muzzle, it leaves behind a microscopic film of vaporized lead, copper, and baked-on carbon residue bonded directly to the steel of your lands and grooves. Now, you might think, so what? It is just a little dirty. But here is where the physics turn against you. As you fire successive rounds, this metallic film thickens. It fills in the microscopic pits and tool marks of your bore.
Once a layer of lead is established, the friction coefficient changes drastically. Lead-on-lead friction is significantly higher than lead-on-steel friction. This means the fouling begins to accumulate exponentially faster with every single trigger pull. Eventually, this toxic buildup disrupts the internal geometry of your barrel. Your bullet relies on a perfect, airtight seal against the rifling, a process called obturation. When lead fouling destroys that seal, high-pressure gases escape around the sides of the bullet. This is called gas blow-by. Your muzzle velocity drops unpredictably. The bullet destabilizes before it even leaves the barrel. The radial pressure spikes. Your groups on paper open up from a tight 1-inch cluster to a sloppy 3-inch scatter. And when that trophy buck steps out at 150 yards, that microscopic layer of lead is the exact reason your bullet flies harmlessly over his back.
So, you do what any responsible hunter does. You go to your local big box sporting goods store. You walk down the gun care aisle. You are greeted by rows of brightly colored bottles with names that sound like military operations. Tactical Extreme Cleaner, Nanotech Bore Scrubber, Miracle Lube. You grab a small 4-ounce bottle and pay $15 at the register, feeling confident that you are buying the absolute cutting edge of chemical engineering. What the industry doesn't want you to know is that you just bought a bottle of cheap mineral oil, maybe a splash of alcohol, and a heavy dose of artificial fragrance. You are paying for the brand, the plastic bottle, and the marketing budget. Let me show you the math that should make every hunter in this country furious. You are paying $12.99 for a tiny 4-ounce commercial bottle. The military-grade formula I'm about to hand you costs 15 cents per ounce to mix in your own garage. That is not a small difference. That is an economic trap engineered by a $3.2 billion industry that profits directly from your confusion. Your grandfather never needed these flashy, overpriced miracle lubes. He did not have aerosol cans with tactical fonts. He did not walk into a store and let a 19-year-old kid in a polo shirt tell him what chemicals his rifle needed. He relied on raw, unfiltered chemistry that actually worked. He relied on knowledge that was born in the trenches and perfected in the armories of the United States military. And right now, that knowledge is in danger of disappearing forever. Because every year, another generation of hunters walks through that gun care aisle and gets sold the same repackaged lie.
To find the ultimate cure for lead fouling, we have to travel back in time. The year is 1923. The United States military is transitioning heavily into high-velocity smokeless powders. While smokeless powder is far more efficient than the old black powder, it leaves behind a stubborn, caked-on carbon residue that acts like a concrete binder, trapping lead and copper against the barrel steel. Furthermore, the primers of that era contain potassium chlorate, which leaves behind highly corrosive salts. Rifles are literally rusting from the inside out overnight. The military faced a crisis. They needed a solvent that could dissolve carbon, lift lead, neutralize corrosive salts, and protect the steel, all in the harshest conditions on planet Earth. Enter a legendary figure in American firearms history. Allow me to introduce you to Major General Julian S. Hatcher, Chief of the Small Arms Division for the U.S. Army Ordnance Department, with over 40 years of ballistics experience. General Hatcher was not a marketing executive sitting in a corner office designing labels. He was a brilliant, pragmatic engineer who understood the brutal reality of battlefield ballistics. He and his team at the Frankford Arsenal developed the highly classified concoction known simply as Frankford Arsenal Nitro Solvent No. 18. This formula was a masterpiece of early 20th century chemistry. It used acetone to attack the nitrocellulose, kerosene to penetrate the steel pores, and sperm oil derived from whale blubber to provide ultimate lubrication and rust prevention. It was virtually indestructible. It kept rifles firing in the jungles of the Pacific, in the frozen mud of the Ardennes, and in the blistering heat of the North African desert. And the total cost per application in today's dollars? Pennies. Decades later, during the post-World War II era, obtaining whale oil became impossible. But the legacy of Arsenal No. 18 did not die.
It was resurrected and modernized by a brilliant firearms engineer and organic chemist named C.E. Ed Harris. Working with modern petrochemicals, Harris adapted Hatcher's formula into a legendary underground mixture known among elite competitive shooters simply as Ed's Red. But Ed's Red, in its basic form, is just a phenomenal solvent. To achieve the legendary 10-minute total lead removal hack, you need the missing link. The secret ingredient that the commercial gun care industry prays you never discover. If you walk into any local pharmacy, bypass the expensive gun oils, and head straight to the skincare or nursing mothers section, you will find it. A small, unassuming tub of thick yellowish wax. It costs practically nothing. What is it? Anhydrous lanolin. Yes, you heard me right. Lanolin. Let me introduce you to someone. Gerald Finch is a licensed compounding pharmacist in Clarksville, Tennessee, with 23 years behind the counter. When I showed him what hunters are paying for commercial bore solvents, he shook his head and said one sentence that has stuck with me ever since. They're selling you $14 of packaging, around 30 cents of chemistry. Gerald explained what anhydrous lanolin actually is. Anhydrous means without water. This substance is a highly purified, complex mixture of natural esters, alcohols, and fatty acids derived directly from the wool of sheep. It is nature's ultimate waterproofing agent. Pharmacists have used it for over a century to carry active ingredients through the skin barrier. And here is what the gun care industry buried. The exact same molecular penetration that delivers medicine through human tissue is what drives lanolin beneath lead fouling and physically lifts it off bare steel. But do not just take Gerald's word for it. Modern research from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, analyzing the thermodynamics of fluid penetration, mechanical friction, and the Washburn equation for capillary flow, has demonstrated how extreme hydrophobic lipids behave under pressure. Anhydrous lanolin possesses an unprecedented molecular affinity for metallic surfaces. It is not just a lubricant. It is an aggressive, relentless surfactant. When you introduce anhydrous lanolin into a highly volatile solvent matrix, it acts as a microscopic wedge. It does not try to magically dissolve the lead, which is chemically impossible without highly dangerous barrel-destroying acids. Instead, it aggressively seeks out the boundary layer between the steel of your barrel and the lead fouling.
It penetrates the microscopic pores of the metal and physically lifts the metallic fouling away from the steel surface. $2. That is what this costs. $2 versus the $12 4-ounce bottle of repackaged mineral oil the industry has been pushing on you for decades. Before I hand you the recipe, I want you to hear from one more person. Martin Kessler is a retired competitive bench rest shooter out of Prescott, Arizona. Over his 41-year career, Martin estimates he has put over 300,000 rounds through precision rifles. He's been using Ed's Red with lanolin for over 22 years. When I asked Martin what happens when he tells fellow shooters at the range about this formula, he said something that perfectly captures everything wrong with this industry. They look at me like I just told them the earth is flat. They cannot believe that a $2 tub of sheep wax does what their $60 bottle of Miracle Boar Sauce cannot. But then I show them the patches, and that is when they stop laughing. Martin's patches come out clean in one pass. The commercial guys are still scrubbing after 45 minutes. That is not opinion. That is observable, repeatable evidence, and it has been hiding in plain sight for over a century.
So, how do we combine the brilliance of Major General Julian S. Hatcher, the modern updates of Ed Harris, the pharmacological insight of Gerald Finch, and the 41 years of field data from Martin Kessler to create the ultimate 10-minute lead destroyer? You are going to build it yourself, and you are going to save hundreds of dollars doing it. Here is the exact, uncompromised recipe. You need 4 basic liquids available at any hardware store and your $2 pharmacy lanolin. First, you need 1 part Dexron automatic transmission fluid, or ATF. ATF is heavily engineered with modern detergents, sulfonates, and phenates that are designed to suspend carbon and prevent it from redepositing onto metal. Think about what it was designed to do. Keep the inside of a high-temperature gearbox surgically clean under extreme pressure. That is exactly what your barrel needs. Second, you need 1 part K1 kerosene, preferably deodorized. Kerosene has an exceptionally low surface tension. It is the transport vehicle that carries the cleaning agents deep into the micro cracks of the fouling. It creeps into spaces that thicker commercial solvents cannot reach. Third, 1 part aliphatic mineral spirits. This acts as a non-polar solvent to dissolve heavy greases and oils. It strips away the waxy, gummy residues that commercial products deliberately leave behind to make you think your barrel is conditioned, when in reality it is just coated in expensive residue. Fourth, 1 part acetone. Acetone is the heavy artillery. It is a highly volatile polar solvent that aggressively attacks and melts the baked-on nitrocellulose and plastic wad residues that act as the glue holding the lead to your barrel. And finally, the magic touch. For every gallon of this mixture you create, you will melt down exactly 1 pound of anhydrous lanolin using a double boiler method and stir it slowly into the liquid. That lanolin is the wedge that no commercial product replicates, because replicating it would put them out of business. A quick safety warning from your veteran hunting brother: do this outside. Acetone is highly volatile and flammable. And never, ever store this mixture in a cheap plastic milk jug or a thin, high-density polyethylene container. The acetone will literally eat through the plastic in a matter of weeks and flood your garage. Use a heavy-gauge metal can or a red NFPA-approved plastic gasoline container. Now that you possess the most powerful, scientifically validated bore cleaner on planet Earth, how do you use it to eradicate lead in 10 minutes flat? The protocol is critical. Mechanical scrubbing is the old, exhausting way, the way the industry wants you to do it, because scrubbing wears out bronze brushes and you have to buy more.
We are going to use chemical warfare instead. Step 1. Ensure your rifle is completely unloaded. The best time to do this is immediately after your range session, while the barrel is still warm to the touch. Heat increases the rate of molecular diffusion. Your grandfather understood this instinctively. He cleaned his rifle the moment he walked in from the field, never the next morning. Step 2. Saturate a tight-fitting cotton patch with your homemade lanolin-infused Ed's Red. Push it slowly through the bore, from the breech to the muzzle. Let the patch fall out the front. Do not pull the dirty patch back through the action. One direction, breech to muzzle, always. Step 3. Walk away. Look at your watch. Give it exactly 10 minutes. Do not touch the gun. During this 10-minute window, a microscopic war is taking place inside your barrel. The acetone is melting the carbon binder, the nitrocellulose glue that locks the lead in place. The kerosene is carrying the solvents deep into the tool marks and microscopic valleys of your rifling. The ATF detergents are encapsulating the loose carbon particles, suspending them in solution so they cannot redeposit. And the anhydrous lanolin is relentlessly driving a wedge between the steel rifling and the lead alloy, physically breaking the mechanical bond at the molecular level. Step 4. Take a high-quality bronze bore brush, dip it in the solvent, and run it through the bore. Because the chemical bond has been completely shattered by the lanolin surfactant, you will not just see black dust. You will actually see physical flakes, ribbons, and curly cues of lead literally falling out of the muzzle. It wipes away as easily as mud off a windshield. Martin Kessler calls this the moment every new convert becomes a believer. Step 5. Run a few dry patches through until they come out clean. What is left behind is a microscopic, vapor-thin boundary layer of lanolin and ATF. Your bore is now perfectly seasoned, rust-proofed for up to 2 years, and mathematically restored to its absolute peak factory precision. Furthermore, because this mixture is so thin, it will not cause your crucial cold-bore first shot to fly wild like thick, gummy commercial oils do. Your grandfather never needed a shelf full of expensive bottles. He never needed a 30-minute scrubbing session. He needed the right chemistry, applied once, and 10 minutes of patience. That is it. That is the entire secret that a $3.2 billion industry has been hiding from you. Remember that freezing November morning I told you about? The frost on the oak leaves, the 4-hour wait, the ghost stepping out of the mist. Now imagine it again, but this time, your barrel is surgically clean. Your cold-bore first shot flies exactly where your crosshairs rest. The rifle roars, and this time, that heavy-horned buck drops right where he stands. That is the difference between a hunter who was lied to and a hunter who knows the truth. Think about what you have just learned. You have bypassed the entire commercial gun care industry. You have taken a recipe forged in the fires of military armories, backed by the highest levels of university fluid dynamics research, validated by a pharmacist with 23 years of chemical expertise, and proven across 300,000 rounds by a competitive shooter who has nothing to sell you. And you have applied it to your own hunting rifle for $2. Your grandfather never walked past a pharmacy shelf without understanding what was on it. He never paid $20 for 30 cents of chemistry. He never needed a flashy tactical label to tell him how to care for his rifle. And now, neither do you. This is what it means to be a true hunter. We are not consumers blindly buying whatever plastic bottle is shoved in our faces. We are craftsmen. We are scientists of the woods. We rely on knowledge, heritage, and the raw truth. What the industry buried is now in your hands.
But knowledge like this does not survive on its own. Every year, another generation of hunters walks into a big box store and gets sold the same lie. Every year, another kid picks up a brightly colored bottle because nobody told him there was a better way. If you believe this craft deserves to be passed down the way your grandfather passed it down, then hit subscribe right now. Not for the algorithm, not for me. Do it because every click is one more hunter the industry loses control over. Do it because hunting is not a hobby.
It is a heritage, and heritage only survives when someone fights to protect it. The woods are calling, brother. Your rifle is ready. Go forge your legacy. I will see you on the next one.